welcome to Cyber Espresso Podcast, your quick shot of cybersecurity insights with industry leaders. I welcome today's guest, Milena Maneva. Milena, good morning. Welcome to our podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Likewise. So, Milena, when we talk about shaping the future of resilience, what is one emerging threat you believe most leaders are still underestimating?
It's a very loaded question, but I believe it's the resilience of people
Okay,
with every system, within every organization, within the complexity of the world we live in. I believe we need to make sure that our people are prepared, not just technology, not just data, but people.
sure. So it's not about the technology, as you rightly said. So they are kind of underestimating the human risk factor.
Absolutely. It's the way that humans are able to cope with different situations and incidents and the complexity of the world we live in. I believe that we need to make sure that people can withstand and survive any of the threats we are preparing for. Obviously, we invest so much in technology, we invest so much in infrastructure, in data, but we don't invest enough in training people, in supporting them, in understanding, are they actually resilient enough to deal with a crisis? Are we sure that when a crisis hits, we're going to be able to rely on these people? Do they have everything they need to actually withstand the crisis? So there is many emerging threats. There is so many geopolitical risks out there. There is so many natural disasters, that are occurring, across the globe. And obviously some of them are happening in different parts of the world. And we think,
Sure.
oh, well, it's nowhere near. But actually, if this
Yeah.
happened,
Yeah.
outside our homes, will we be able to cope? Will our people be able to cope? So
Sure.
that's why I feel like instead of just looking at the risks and the threats out there, I believe it's very important to consider the people aspect as well.
Very good, very good. So one of the complexity comes through the AI because AI becomes central to many things, including the business strategy. So how is the role of CISO evolving to cope with that?
I think AI, it's fantastic. It's not something that's new. However, it has come to the mainstream, a couple of years ago when the main AI and OpenAI introduced ChatGPT and multiple other tools. However, AI has been something that has been here since the 1950s. And what the public sees of AI is not actually its capabilities. We don't even see the surface of what's actually available out there. So for me, CISOs need to be aware of the fact that AI is evolving, and in the next
Mhm.
5 years, it will be unrecognizable. There will be more tools, there will be more ways of doing things. AI will evolve as well, and what we see is just the tip of the iceberg. So it's important to prepare for. Within our organizations, to prepare our data, to prepare our infrastructure, to make sure that we can cope with AI in the future. We need to make sure we have the right governance in place. I think a lot of people are jumping on the train, and they're trying to implement AI as quickly as possible because they don't want to miss out. They have this fear of missing out, and they want to be competitive. They want to make sure that they have AI, but I don't think they understand the
Yeah.
depths of it. So looking at things from the background, creating that resilience by design is my motto. You need to make sure you understand the governance, the ethics. You need to understand your data. You need to understand the capabilities you're trying to achieve, because it's not just about having AI and implementing AI in your day to day. It's also about designing things for the future. So make
Mhm.
sure that if you are implementing AI or you're working with a team that's implementing AI, think about that resilience by design aspect and the governance.
Perfect. So it leads to my next question indeed. In one of your posts, you mentioned that cyber threats are evolving faster than our defenses. So what has to fundamentally change really for organizational leaders to really survive in the new pace of attacks?
Absolutely. I think, you know, CISO have been struggling for a while to get buy-in, from the boards and executives. And sometimes the board will say yes, but let's say the chief financial officer will say, well, this is not really urgent. Let's postpone this for the next year or 6 months. So a lot of the security teams are struggling to get approval of all the implementations they want to achieve ahead of time. So this causes delays. By the time you create a pack, by the time you speak to the board, by the time you convince them why this issue is actually critical, why this risk is actually really important. There is obviously something new in the world of cyber attacks, and attackers are using very clever methods. They're still using
Right.
people, but they're using now 24/7 agents in AI that are targeting your organization much faster than any of the teams can handle, to decept this information and to see these vulnerabilities and attacks. So maybe even if we have the best systems, we still rely on people to filter some of these alerts that we are seeing, and sometimes we are stretched. The security teams are extremely stretched. So sometimes it's not about just detecting the AI, it's also dealing with the consequences in the background. So I believe we're not prepared to withstand, what's coming, because we have all this governance in place. Maybe some organizations are better than others, but
Mhm.
if you look at the dark web, there's like 11 organizations a day that are dealing with an incident, with a cyber incident. They are experiencing that crisis response that no one is hearing about in the news. So how can we make sure that our people can actually support us, through an incident like that? We've seen a lot of incidents in 2025, the Marks and Spencer Co-op.
Yes.
We've seen the Jaguar and Land Rover incidents. They were shut for months, on some of their
Yes. Yeah.
online offerings, and the manufacturing, there were a lot of subcontractors that were relying on their services and to produce parts and etc. So preparing for the next generation of attacks will require us to be more agile, to be more prepared. And also, we need to make sure that our people are on the same journey, because it's great in introducing all this amazing technology and working with AI. We need to make sure that our people can help us with this journey.
Very good. Well, Milena, I appreciate your time. Thanks for this joyful conversation and sharing your insights. I look forward to talking to you on other occasions.
Likewise, thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Take care. Bye bye.